Dearest daughter, I've watched ye grow from a devilishly curious child into a remarkable young lass with much grace, wisdom,
mirroring a lot of
and kindness. Take the easy times what shape us, nay.
Like the look of that sword.
'Tis how we rise to face the hard times, what does that for us. Ye've an heart of gold. Ye've the spirit to overcome adversities aplenty. Darling.
Tell me, we'll talk to you in just a moment.
Sweeten. Today's the day. Ye fill out your destiny.
Fill out your destiny? That's kind of a weird phrase. I mean, it looks, the skin, the eyes there looks fantastic. This feels appropriately Witcher.
Forgive me, daughter. 'Twere my only choice.
I shall be the bringer of salvation.
Oh, and there's Siri.
A Witcher? Witcher! Whose coin did ye take? Nay, you can't. 'Tis tradition. Chosen she is, by the gods.
No!
They aged her really
You
well.
chose her.
They did age her really well. I'm trying to get a look at her eyes to see what they look like, because Ciri... So, this assumes a canon event in that Ciri, at the end of Witcher 3, became a Witcher, which is really strange, because that assumes kind of a lot. This is going to be tricky. If she is actually a Witcher, like we know the canon event is probably that she
Back to the village. Go, now.
Nay,
picked up
I must
the
save
career.
them. Save the village.
Save yourself.
Let's see, she actually went through the trials of the grasses.
Run.
Oh, she's using a cat
to
medallion.
shelter. To your father.
That's an interesting reference. Well, not
Run!
reference. It's like that's the one she carried with her was a cat medallion. So that's interesting. I love the armor that she's wearing. I mean, I get a lot of Geralt here. I mean, I guess it's the point, his influence on her. But oh, she is chugging potions. She's an actual Witcher. That is interesting. Yeah, this reminds me of fighting the what are those insects? She starts off getting her ass kicked. She doesn't hold up as well as Geralt does in the fight anyway.
Cannot be changed. You cannot change.
And she's able to do more than just signs, but she can actually use magic. That could result in something interesting gameplay-wise, I think. Maybe not like that. Okay. The music is amazing. And this is mirroring Geralt's when he took down Striga. Although she puts fire through it, that's kind of cool. That would be a better weapon, a better tool even, than I think the crossbow. It's a good scream. I almost hear the quality of the microphone in that breath. That was really strange.
were to go to the woods. The chosen one. It's tradition.
Oh, no. No. No.
It's all we wanted. For her to go to the woods. To go to the gods.
Gods? There are no gods here. There are only monsters.
Oh, man. Oh, wow. Okay. Wow, it's good. So we knew that Ciri was coming, or she was going to be the main character of The Witcher 4. We kind of knew that, and it's interesting for one very significant reason is that she's only kind of a Witcher, right? It appears that she appears to have gone through, or at least is able to take potions. Her eyes seem to shift, so it seems like she's gone through the Trial of the Grasses, which is really interesting. Oh, thanks, sorry. I meant hi. But the strange thing here is that it seems like she can use more than just signs. Now, she didn't use a crossbow, which I actually kind of appreciate, so I kind of hope they remove crossbow. I didn't like crossbows very much. So if instead she's using some kind of chain weapon, that I actually think is really cool. I like that a lot better. So clearly she'll still probably use bombs. She'll probably use potions still, blade oils, all that. I fully expect that. But the ability to use more than just signs, perhaps she has a separate, tree specifically for using magic, could be really interesting because it adds a whole other level of depth because she doesn't need crossbows if she can do ranged attacks, that kind of thing. And generally speaking, when I build characters in any kind of RPG game, I actually do like a mix of magic and or sword and sorcery. So this might actually scratch that itch, which is kind of nice. The tricky part here, though, is how they want to tell the story for two reasons for me. And one is that we have made so many decisions along the way with regards to what happens to Redania and King Radovid, what happens to Emir von Emrys, and then other small things along the way, what happens to Geralt and Yennefer, depending on what endings you chose. CD Projekt Red is now basically saying, all right, well, this is the canon ending. This is where the stuff is. Because I assume that there's going to be nothing imported. They're probably going to start fresh, as they should. Because the idea of even trying to import all the other options or decisions that you've made in the first two games seems too significant. And it would be too resource intense to bring any of that into a new game. Let's just start fresh. They need to clean the slate, and I think that's a good idea. I'm not too sure about setting something after the fact. Now, this is beyond the books, right? The books shows nothing covers any of this story. This is entirely CD Projekt Red. So they kind of have free reign here, which is interesting. I think for me, I would have preferred a Witcher game that was actually set in the past more, where you get to choose a Witcher school, where it's still an open RPG, but you still have more options, where perhaps, for example, you have you have multiple different Witcher schools. You choose which one you start up in, you go through that, and then, maybe you're in the original, in Witcher 3, you might recall that we had this wolf sense where you could track scents through the woods or whatever, but perhaps if you're a cat Witcher, you actually don't need a cat potion because that sense is actually better improved night vision. They can't really follow scents, but they can still track footprints. So it kind of changes up how you might address certain quests, or if you could even do them. Bear Witchers are known for being quite aggressive once they get out of their schools. So unlike the wolves who would, winter at Kaer Morhen, you might have the Bear Witchers who, when they meet each other on the path, might actually fight to the death because Bear Witchers are extraordinarily aggressive. You'd also have, perhaps Viper Witchers. They could explore parts of Nilfgaard, honestly, with, instead of using the traditional two swords, they might rely on, longer daggers or something of that nature, kind of shaking up that whole genre. that I think would have been preferable to me than doing something new. And it reminds me quite a lot of what happened with BioWare and Mass Effect Andromeda. And I will say, and I will die on this hill, that Andromeda was a very, very, very good game with brilliant gameplay. All right, the story was fine. The voice acting, the character animations, that was fine. It was just fine. They were, fine. But the gameplay was outstanding. And I think it gets more hate than it deserves. But with Mass Effect Andromeda, they did the smart thing, I think. They set it 800 years in the future in a whole other galaxy. So there's no chance of any of the characters that we know and love coming back. And I think they had to do that. To be like, look, we're writing a new chapter. You have to forget that this has all happened. And it's going to take time to get to learn these new characters, so you have to give them that time. And people didn't. And that was really unfair, I think, for BioWare, because it was actually a very, very good game. CD Projekt Red decided not to take that risk, and I find that interesting. They're going to take a character who is a known commodity who we love, and they're going to make her the main character here. So they're playing it a little safe, I think. Conversely, though, if you've played through all of the Witcher games, you've gotten to know Ciri as she was a child, kind of growing up, or becoming a Witcher, especially in the third game, really meeting Ciri and doing all that. And so there comes a point when you're sort of, looking at Ciri as like a daughter figure. And so playing as her is a little strange, because some of the options, if they want to get into her personal life, are going to be a little awkward for two more reasons. One is that Ciri is canonically a lesbian. And two, because I view her as like a daughter-like figure who I've kind of like mentored and helped train and, watching grow up into a perfectly competent Witcher on her own, that's not a part of the game I would even ever explore, because I view her like a kid, like my kid. So I couldn't possibly go through. If romancing was an option in Witcher 4, I would probably disregard it completely. Because I can't view her I can't view her in a sexualized way, because like you knew her as a child. But we will have to see, because admittedly, like with CD Projekt Red has shown that they are monumentally competent at making an open world game. And regardless of how you feel about the launch of Cyberpunk 2077, they just announced the 2.2 update for it, or just released a 2.2 update for it even, which is crazy years after the fact. So they've well made up for the fact that they had a rocky launch, a rocky start with Cyberpunk. So it is fully possible that this is just going to, I fully expect this to be a fantastic game with even better gameplay. And it looks great. I love the way they aged Ciri. She looks appropriately older. And I don't think Geralt or any of the main characters that we've met before should make an appearance. It's going to be tricky, because depending on choices you made, either, the North has been either been united under Radovid, or they've been united under Emir. And there's a third option where they just kind of stay independent, and I think Radovid is dead anyway. And it gets really complicated, because that then depends on if Ciri became the Empress, if Ciri became a Witcher, if she died, if Radovid wasn't deposed, then Dijkstra's probably dead. But if he was deposed, Dijkstra might be king. It's really strange. And if Dijkstra becomes king, that means Roach and Vess are dead. So a lot of the characters we meet along the way don't really, unless this takes place in a new region and she's traveling elsewhere. That would also be interesting, and I would actually welcome that option. The other thing is, we know by the time even Geralt was fairly young, Witcher as a profession was kind of dying. It was a fairly short-lived profession within the grand scheme of things, in that it was already dying, the Kaer Morhen was falling apart, the Cat Witches already portrayed, or the wolves, everything has gone to hell. The Viper Witchers were under the thumb of Nilfgaard. It was really falling apart. So I would be curious to see how this handles all that. Another interesting thing is, they kind of hint at this at the end of, I think, Witcher 3 and also the books, is the addition of another Witcher school, the mention of another Witcher school. it was a bird type skull. I can't remember off the top of my head which one it was. That hinted at them using black powder. That could also be an extraordinarily interesting route to take. No, not Griffin. It's actually a different one. We can actually find that out, but let's see. So we know that there's the wolf, cat, griffin, bear, viper, manticore, crane. It's the school of the crane. So this is one that's only really ever hinted at, and it's never mentioned. I don't think it's ever mentioned in the books proper. But rather than using crossbows, they actually use black powder, and it's just like it's like a line or two that gets mentioned, and that I think would be interesting. Being on the cusp of technology with magic and the option to use like black powder. But again, now we're focusing on Ciri, which means we're going to be focusing on magic. So it's a little strange. Am I going to get this? 100%. Like, there's no question. I'm going to play this game the day it comes out. There is no question. And before we play this, we're going to have to play through Witcher 3 again on stream. So I've got kind of a long list of stuff to go through. We have no idea. We just know that this is the first Witcher trailer we've ever gotten. So, or at least for Witcher 4, rather. We will see. It's going to be a while, I assume. Since we didn't actually see any gameplay, all we saw was the cinematic. But that being said, I actually really, really like what they did with Ciri's design. I love what they did with Ciri's design. She's got influences of Geralt in there, especially with like the chainmail she's got in the shoulders and her chest. And I think they aged her quite well, and they showed how she uses her magic. They did harken back to like the Striga with the chain and all that, but rather than have it be, or maybe it is still a silver chain, but she was able to run magic through it, and I think that's really clever. So if they could do something with that weapon, I think that would be really interesting. So we will see. Okay.